The Air Pollution Control District, or APCD for short, regulates the marine coating industry in San Diego County. The APCD regulates the type and amount of paints and solvents used in the marine coating industry through APCD Rule 67.18 Marine Coating Operations and individual facility permits. These regulations are in place to minimize volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, from evaporating into the atmosphere. When VOCs evaporate into the atmosphere, they contribute to the formation of ground-level ozone. Ozone can contribute to shortness of breath, wheezing, aggravation of asthma, and other respiratory illnesses. If your company is a marine coating or painting contractor, also known as painting or preservation contractor, ensure you work closely with your host facility. Host facilities in San Diego County include shipyards, boat yards, repair yards, or naval installations. By working closely with your host facility, it will ensure you understand and comply with their site-specific environmental requirements and permit conditions, including record-keeping and product approval requirements. This video will go into detail regarding some of those requirements for operating at host facilities. Rule 67.18 regulates the VOC content of paints and solvents used during the painting of marine and freshwater vessels, oil drilling platforms, navigational aids and component parts, and structures intended for exposure to a marine environment. This includes painting all parts on a ship or boat, such as handrails, decking, underwater hull, hatches, and tanks, but does not include painting on piers, gangways, or toolboxes. Painting in these areas is regulated by the APCD under different rules and will not be discussed in this video. Marine paint must either have a VOC content of 340 grams per liter or less, or fit into one of the specialty coating definitions. Some examples of specialty coatings include anti-foulant, high gloss, heat resistant, and special marking. If a coating has a VOC content greater than 340 grams per liter, ensure that all documentation required to meet the definition of a specialty coating is available to be provided to the APCD upon request. For example, anti-foulant coating is required to be registered as a pesticide with EPA, and high gloss coating must achieve at least 85% reflectance on a 60-degree meter. See APCD Rule 67.18 for definitions of additional specialty coating categories. An important thing to remember is to use the solvent you have for its intended purpose. A solvent used for surface preparation may not be allowed to be used in cleaning of application equipment such as spray guns. The Marine Coating Regulation has different standards for the solvents used in surface preparation and application equipment cleanup. If the solvent has a VOC content of 200 grams per liter of material or less, or initial boiling point of 190 degrees Celsius or greater, or has a vapor pressure of 20 millimeters of mercury or less, the solvent will comply with both sets of standards. However, there are other common ways to comply with either standard that will not allow the solvent to be used for both surface preparation and equipment cleanup. The other options to comply with the application equipment cleaning are a system which totally encloses the cleaning equipment during the washing, rinsing, and draining process. The cleaning solvent is flushed or rinsed through the application equipment in a contained manner that will minimize evaporation into the atmosphere. A container is used which is only open when it is being accessed for adding, cleaning, or removing application equipment, or when cleaning solvent is being added, provided the cleaned equipment is allowed to drain in the container until dripping stops. The cleaning solvent has a total vapor pressure of VOC of 20 millimeters of mercury or less. In contrast, the solvents used in surface preparation are allowed to have a total vapor pressure of VOC of 45 millimeters of mercury or less. Another requirement which cannot be said enough is to keep solvent containers closed when not adding or removing material. This includes any drums, buckets, containers, or gun washers. Rule 67.18 contains record-keeping requirements. These requirements include manufacturer's name and identification, mix ratio, VOC content, and initial boiling point for each paint, paint component, and solvent used. Records must also include documentation demonstrating the applicability of any specialty coating category, such as EPA pesticide number or reflectance. All of this information can typically be found on the safety data sheet, otherwise known as an MSDS, or the product data sheet. Records must also include the amount of paint and solvent applied. Records must be maintained on-site for 3 years. Most ship repair facilities, for example BAE Systems, NASSCO, and Continental Maritime, including the Navy bases, also known as a host facility, require that usage records be submitted by the 10th of the month following the month the usage occurred at their facility. Each host facility typically has a specific record-keeping form that you must utilize when operating at their facility, so be sure to communicate with the host facility to ensure that you are using the appropriate record-keeping forms. In addition, some host facilities require that batch certifications for each paint be maintained and submitted to them. Host facilities, for example BAE Systems, Continental Maritime of San Diego, NASSCO, and naval installations, require that each company has pre-approval to paint at their facility prior to beginning a job. Each host facility has a slightly different process, but they typically include training of all personnel, receiving pre-approval for each coating and solvent being used, and providing accurate usage records at the end of each project. Be sure to communicate with your host facility prior to beginning work to ensure compliance with their site-specific requirements. For contact information at some host facilities, please refer to the information on the screen. Remember that communication with your host facility prior to beginning any painting operations is the best way to ensure compliance with the rules and keep your company out of trouble.